Good evening, I hope everyone's well today. Thank you for watching, as always, it is appreciated. So Reform UK and Nigel Farage tried to introduce a bill into Parliament today to get us out of the ECHR. It's what's known as a 10-minute rule bill. So I want to give you a bit of background on that because some people may not be up on how Parliament actually works, so I want to give this now. The 10-minute rule bill, or 10-minute rule motion, is a procedure in the UK Parliament that allows members of Parliament to make a short speech lasting up to 10 minutes and introduce what's known as a private member's bill. The purpose of this is it's one of the ways that MPs who are not in government, who are not government ministers, propose new laws or suggest changes to existing laws. So the way that it actually works is on the screen now. The MP applies in advance to the Speaker of the House of Commons for permission to introduce the bill under the 10-minute rule. Then there's a speech on the day, which happened today, that gives MPs up to 10 minutes to explain and argue in favour of their proposed bill. Another MP can speak against the bill for up to 10 minutes, and then a decision is made based on the vote. Now, what actually happened with Nigel today is his bill was rejected and defeated. It's by the by, Labour had the opportunity to do the right thing and let the bill come in, but they whipped the Labour Party, and the Prime Minister actually whipped their MPs to abstain. So they didn't actually vote against it, they just abstained, which is essentially indifference. Now, the ECHR, while we are party to it, and the legislation in British law, I think it's the 1998 Human Rights Act, that actually brings a lot of the ECHR into UK or British law. While that's there, we can't deport foreign criminals, and we can't do X, Y, and Z. It's very important that we leave them, in my view. Until we do that, Brexit isn't complete. I want to play 3 clips here. Alright, and 2 from Parliament, and there's also a phone in from Talk TV earlier on today, which will give you some context to what's going on and how Reform UK are treated in the House of Commons. So without further ado, I'm going to play the clips now.
Very briefly, of some of the worst examples of where the ECHR takes away our democratic rights. To begin, and it's really interesting, isn't it? It was the last Conservative government who decided to put in place the Rwanda legislation. In theory, very good. It would act as a deterrent. Unless you support the criminal gangs, yes, it was a very good idea. A very good idea.
It's brilliant.
The trouble was it couldn't happen. And why couldn't it happen? Well, because you think about the Rwanda deportation flight in 2022, at 10 p.m. at night, a single judge in Strasbourg, one without any legal qualification.
That's very important to note. These judges in Strasbourg, sometimes they're not even competent in the particular field that they're ruling on. They impose on high to sovereign states what we can and can't do. I've mentioned this previously on the channel, but it bears repeating. Europe, the continent, has a top-down approach where we have a bottom-up approach in terms of legislation and law. In Britain, at least the theory is, you can do something unless the law explicitly says that you can't do it, i.e. illegal. Now in the continent it's the opposite. It's unless you're told by government you can't do it. Now on the mainland continent, because of their different rationale to what we have here, many countries on the continent just ignore the bits of the ECHR rulings that they don't want to do. Whereas us, being very proper and very polite about things, like to dot every T and cross every T and dot every I, there we go, which is why we implement the ECHR rulings to the letter. And Churchill, when he was part of the framers of the original articles in the 1950s, he wouldn't have signed up if he knew what it would have become. And not just that, with the ECHR itself, it was there as a protection for the mainland continent, not for the United Kingdom. It was to safeguard against a potential World War III. That's why the ECHR was important for the continent. and not so much for countries like the UK. We'll let Farage continue.
Decided on the basis of Article 3, the flight could not take off. And we go on, of course, to horrendous stories, particularly under Article 8, the right to a family life. Well, whose family? The families of British people, or the families of those who come into Britain, in some cases illegally, and then been waved through. Some of it is disgusting beyond belief. A Pakistani child sex offender dodged deportation on the basis that his removal would harm the children that he'd had in this country.
A quick aside, this is just one of many examples. The Epping migrants who was sent down for assaults on local people, local children, who was accidentally released over the weekend, he's gone now, he's been deported. But we did actually pay him to go. So this is the ridiculousness of the situation that we're currently in. When we are actually deporting foreign criminals, we're actually giving them a stipend or stipend for some reason to say, please go and don't come back. Now, if I had my way, it would be a short drop and a sudden stop. It really would be for people like this. There's no reasoning with people like this, in my view. We'll continue.
And this goes on and on and on. Brazilian murderers, rapists, many others who claim under Article 8 the right to a family life. Well, what about British families? What about their rights? What about their freedoms? What are your priorities here as members of this place?
The British Parliament should be putting the British people first, the common man and woman on the streets, not the elites that are in Parliament in the House of Commons. They shouldn't be in the Commons, in my view. They should be in the other place. The privileged, they are sheltered, and as I've mentioned before, they've got a homicidal empathy. I don't use the other word. It's homicidal empathy, and I use that word purposefully because they're not putting their own lives in danger, they're putting other people's lives in danger. So that's the first clip. Now the second clip was from Talk TV, and it was a call to Julia Hartley-Brewer based on the back of that bin man who was tragically taken from us yesterday. This is the real world cost. This is what every member of Parliament should have on their conscience.
I live in the borough right next to Hillingdon.
Yep.
And I moved into my house in 2019. My local shop, there's been 3 stabbings, 1 murder since then. My friend was murdered last year up on the High Street. Girl I know was murdered in Southall Park. The government is failing us. I'm so scared for my children. I have a 22-year-old son, and I'm begging him to move out of the country.
Oh my goodness, I
don't know
feel for you.
What are these politicians doing to us? They're putting our children in so much danger. They're putting everyone in danger, and they're not doing nothing to help us.
And that's the thing a lot of us feel. How many is too many?
They're pushing us.
One is too many, Julia. This shouldn't be happening at all. We've voted against it repeatedly. At this point, you need to weigh risk versus reward, and it's just not worth it. I never thought it was.
To do something that we don't want to do. We are peaceful people. British people never vote against their government.
Yeah.
They're going to push us through it because they're not listening to us. Our friends, our family are dying. I had a cousin murdered 20 years ago who was stabbed to death, and nothing has changed, Julia.
I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'm sure I speak for everyone listening and watching right now. My heart goes out to you, and that's the reality.
I don't leave the house without a man.
You're that worried.
So anyone I know is getting stabbed. They're getting raped in parks. This is where I live, not where the politicians live.
Hit the nail on the head though, as I've mentioned all the time. They're in sheltered communities, gated communities, and they have what's known as a luxury belief system. And they don't deal with the real life consequences of their policy decisions. We do. And this woman, this poor woman, is a prime example of it. She won't leave the house without a man because she doesn't feel safe. This is what's been done to us by repeated governments over the past 30 years. We do not accept this. We reject this outright.
Do you think that's part of the issue, that they don't live in the real world?
Yes, Dharma, if you're listening to this, please do something. I'm petrified. I've never broken the law in my life. I've been a law-abiding citizen. I've been a civil servant. Please do something. It's us that are dying on the streets. You talk about being racist. We're not racist. My sister's mixed race. I was a white child brought up in a mixed race family. Nothing to do with race.
Exactly.
It's to do with our safety.
Sarah, I mean, 100%.
So we'll leave that one there. This is just one example. I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people that feel the same way as Sarah. I know I do. And it's disgusting. We're going to move on to the final clip of what happened in the Commons today with Farage before his bill was defeated.
Alarm at the huge numbers of people coming into our country. The fact that effectively we had open borders, making us poorer in every way. Now, of course, our membership of the European Council, of the European Convention, and then it's writing into British law in 1998, kind of enshrined this, and it's what I think Tony Blair wanted us to do. Now, I believe that Brexit cannot be complete, all the while we're subject to a foreign court and frankly, a piece of legislation brought in by the Blair government.
I completely agree in principle with what Farage and Reform UK are saying here. If anyone's ever scrutinised the legislation when we actually join the EU and when we sign up to treaties like the ECHR, it's very, very specific and it's very, very explicit. No power is removed from Parliament, i.e. the King and Parliament, when we sign into these treaties. Is very explicitly worded to say that discretion on the application of said treaties remains with the Prime Minister, the government of the day, and the actual elected Parliament. So while it's symbolic to leave the ECHR, it's not technically required. But I'll continue.
Upon which judges can choose their own political interpretation. We are not sovereign, all the while we are part of the ECHR, the European Council, and its associated court. It's as simple as that. And do you wonder, it's marvellous to see the intellectual levels of debate in this place, it really is. Do you wonder that out in the country there is growing frustration?
Order. Can I remind members that the Honourable Gentleman has a 10-minute rule bill in front of this House and should be listened to without interruption. Nigel Farage.
As I mentioned earlier, the Lib Dems actually voted against it, and they put out some dodgy information on X saying it's to protect our human rights and it's what Winston Churchill would have wanted. I reject this wholesale. It's not what Winston Churchill would have wanted. And yes, he was a good Prime Minister. He was a good wartime Prime Minister, but he was a disastrous peacetime Prime Minister. And there's a lot of historians that would agree with my assessment on that particular point. The Reform government, when it comes in 2028, 2029, will be taking us out of the ECHR anyway. Danny Kruger he's going to get the legislation ready to do all sorts of things as soon as they get in day one. And orders in council, which are the equivalent of our executive orders in the United Kingdom. The difference is they're not signed off by the President, they're signed off by the King, and the government of the day actually has the drafting ability, whereas in America it's all done by the President. So we are going to get this done. It just would have been nice that Parliament and the Labour Party would get on the train, because they're just delaying the inevitable. All of the elites that think they're doing the right thing, they are just delaying the inevitable at this point. Now, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, give me a like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one later on today. Have a good day and thank you for your time.